today's video, this is an educational video specifically discussing the importance of protein distribution and catering that protein distribution towards you and your goals. We're actually going to be talking about intermittent fasting versus having an even spread of macronutrients and, more importantly, protein distribution throughout the day. We're also going to be talking about what you need to do in order to maximize the muscle protein synthetic response of a meal. And the first thing I want to talk to you today about is how many feedings you should be considering when you are trying to maximize the muscle protein synthetic response. Now, what I will say is that I'm a big fan right now of a 4-meal per day spread, eating over the course of about 12 to maybe 14 hours, something around there. Predominantly because a lot of the research surrounding muscle protein synthesis tells us that the MPS signaling or the MPS response will stay elevated as long as there's enough amino acids in the bloodstream for upwards of 3 to even 4 hours, sometimes even more than that. It just depends on how many amino acids were ingested. It also depends on your specific rate of digestion and metabolization, okay? So the way that I like to break this down, and I know you can't see my paper, but I took some notes here, and the importance of this graph I think is very valuable. So if I was to draw a straight line, and every time I spike muscle protein synthesis, I am in an anabolic or a growing state, right? Now, ideally, I would have a spike and a fall, a spike and a fall, a spike and a fall, about 4 meals per day, and then I'd probably fast for about 10 to 12 hours, okay? Now, if you ever heard of the concept of intermittent fasting, what is intermittent fasting and what's the difference between what I'm recommending versus intermittent fasting? Intermittent fasting, depending on how it's done, can be either an 18-hour fast followed by 6 hours of feeding, or a 16-hour fast followed by 8 hours of eating. But the primary reason as to why this diet can essentially work is because you are restricting how many calories you're eating in that day by reducing or eliminating a whole meal. Now, if I told you, hey, you could have to hit your protein target for the day in 2 meals, because that's probably all you could fit into a 6 or an 8-hour time period, that would be pretty challenging for some of you, because even if you're a woman that's watching this video, your protein target's probably close to 130 to 150 grams of protein. So if I asked you to do that in 2 feedings, you could obviously see how that may be challenging. You'd have to eat 60, 70, 80 grams of protein over the course of that 6 to 8 hour time period. And then for the rest of the day, you could potentially be able to go in more of a catabolic state, which we wouldn't want if the goal is to build muscle, to build shape, to improve how you look aesthetically, and to improve how you look in a swimsuit. So let's go ahead and let's circle back to what I recommend. 1 feeding 4 times per day, okay, having about 10 to 12 hours of fasting each day. Now, the reason I recommend the fasting is mainly just for blood glucose levels and insulin. That's the primary reason, is to basically make sure that we're not forcing somebody to go more insulin sensitive. Now, in the bodybuilding culture, there are some people who will actually wake up in the middle of the night and actually drink maybe 40 grams of whey protein in a shake in the middle of the night, so they can spike muscle protein synthesis 5 times, or potentially even more times than that. But just like with most things, you have to consider the fact that if you spike muscle protein synthesis too often, that you could actually not necessarily have as powerful of an MPS response. So remember what I said earlier with the rise, the fall, the rise, the fall, the rise, the fall, and that being optimal. If you try eating like 8 times per day or something like that, you're spiking, but you're never actually falling because you're staying elevated the entire time, almost too frequently. So I'm a big fan of larger bolus doses of protein 4 times per day, or again, if you want to go super crazy with it, you could have a protein shake before bed or something. But also have to be mindful that eating too late before bed can actually negatively influence your sleep quality and your ability to get into a proper rest and digest state. Now, protein requirements. How much protein? So to maximize the muscle protein synthetic response, we have 2 variations we're going to break down. One of them is for females. The other one's going to be for males. Now, for females, based off the scientific literature that we have available and based off of just us working with literally thousands of clients and seeing amazing body composition transformations, I'm going to recommend for females 30 to 40 grams of protein per meal throughout the day. So that would give us roughly 120 grams to 160 grams of protein per day. And I will mention we do have a couple female clients right now that are eating over 170, 180 grams of protein per day, but that's because it doesn't bother their digestion and they actually enjoy that better than maybe not having as much protein. For males, I think it's highly dependent on how much lean body mass you actually carry. So in this specific scenario, we would run about 40 to 60 grams of protein 4 times per day, which would give you a grand total of roughly 160 all the way up to 240 grams of protein per day, which again, if you're a larger man, more lean body mass, you'd probably favor on the higher side. If you're a smaller guy, less lean body mass, you'd probably favor on the lower side.